Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very highly requested video with someone that I'm really excited about. This is Shannon Lee Simmons. And I mean, the list of accomplishments and things that she's done is going to be way too long to mention, but the most important is she is the founder of New School of Finance and the author of Worry-Free Money, which is a book that I think everyone, especially every young woman, should read. I think everyone needs to read, but for my audience, you guys need to read it. So I reached out to Shannon because I really wanted to get an expert to sit down and talk about finance. I think this is such a overlooked subject that has so much power over us, and I wish that I learned more about it when I started working. And when I was reading your book, I was just like, oh, I wish I read this when I was 16 and started making money. It's not even, the financial kind of, what I could have already. It's just the, the choices you make and just the power you feel over your life.
Yeah, money dictates everything that we do, from whether you buy a coffee that morning or take transit or a taxi. Those are all financial decisions, right?
Yeah.
So when you're not sure if you're on track with your finances, each one of those transactions, even if it's small, can feel scary and just make you feel insecure about your finances, right?
Exactly.
So that's why it has that power and feels
I feel like after reading the book, I feel like this, like a...
empowered.
Yeah. I got this.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I've started already giving all these tips to my husband this morning, and he's like, okay, can we talk about it maybe a little later? It's 7 a.m. Okay, so I wanted to cover kind of the things that I think that we both think that will be beneficial for every young woman to know. I did a story on my Instagram asking you guys what kind of the main subject you want to hear about, and we basically gonna cover that. And obviously, to learn more, there's this thing which I'm gonna link in the description because I care about you. The first thing that we're gonna talk about is something that I never really connected to finance, and that's social media.
Yeah, it's huge.
When I was reading the chapter in the book, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I know.
So can you talk a little bit about how social media affects our finance?
Yeah, so it's something that I started to see again and again with my clients, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. People saying things like, well, I see other people, buying a house, or they become debt-free, or they're on vacation, and they're seeing it. That means that they're scrolling, and they're like, why can't I do that? Or what am I doing wrong? So that's where I kind of connected the dots, that social media and our finances are having this weird relationship. And then when I started just bluntly asking clients, like, what are you talking about? Like, how is this happening with social media? I started to realize that sometimes if we're feeling blue or down or like inadequate, or like we're questioning, like, what choices did I make? And like, why don't I have that? And we're feeling frustrated with our own financial life. When we see other people that are seemingly succeeding, right? Because people post highlight reels, right? We're not going to post all the bad stuff. It can make us feel like we're seeing all these other people succeed when we're not. So it really drives home something that I call the inadequacy influence, right? Like, it makes you feel like that. And a lot of times spending money is the fastest, most direct route to feeling better about that particular problem. So for example, I just talked to a client like this. So it's the winter time. She can't afford a vacation somewhere warm. And that makes her feel like, oh, I want to go away. And then, she's scrolling through her feed and sees all these people in Mexico in bikinis on the beach. They're surfing. And it's like, oh, my job doesn't pay me enough. I suck. And like, that's frustrating. And then she, at 11 o'clock at night, opened up her computer, started looking at flights, and it was a good deal, and then booked, even though it was all on credit with no plan to pay that back. So that's that direct link. It's like you take a weak moment, vulnerable person in that moment, you show them everyone else doing what you wish you could do. You don't have enough money, and you're like, screw it. I'm going to do it anyways. That's how. It's a whole cycle.
It's Absolutely. A tricky thing, and we were talking about it because, I feel the same way. We actually, like, even on our phone call, I was saying that, you get inspired and motivated by social media. That's why I'll never leave the platform.
No, I love social media, yeah.
But it's like you really have to get a grip on your mind and just, like, know when you're vulnerable. Okay, cool. When you're that, and know when, okay, this is my time to kind of step away. And I did a video about it, social media and self-love. It's obviously not connected to finance, but it was the same kind of thing, right? Because it's this feeling of feeling not good enough, and we sometimes follow these accounts that bring no value to us.
No, and they make you feel, it's like a trigger, and it makes you feel pressure to be a way that you're not able to be necessarily. And so if you can identify those triggers and see it coming, then you can sidestep them, right? Like you can be like, oh, this is making me feel like that. I don't necessarily need to go on my computer and book a flight, right?
Exactly. It's so true. And I got a lot of questions, you know, from girls saying, how do I afford all these things that I always see and still, you know, be financially smart?
Yeah, I did that project called Real Selfies. It was like behind every selfie is a bill, right? Like someone had to pay money for that, but we don't post our credit card statement after a vacation, right?
Yes,
so
I
just
agree.
Keeping that perspective when you're looking, a lot of, like, you don't know the financial background of what's gone into, like, maybe that person has debt, maybe they have parents who've really helped them financially, maybe they got stuff for free, you don't know, right? So you can't you can't compare.
Yeah, that's the thing, the self-comparison. This is the generation that does it the most. We feel very insecure about just like where we're at in life. So I think that I do love, you know, you mentioned to do like a social media detox. I love that idea, and I personally do it, you know, once in a while. Like for me, weekends are just like, I'm really trying to be offline and just enjoy my life and my children. I mean, realistically, we can't just like, okay, shut down, erase Facebook, erase Instagram, especially not today. So
it's part of our life.
It's part of the life, so I think that, you know, just practicing that self-awareness, right, and just understanding who you are and kind of where you're going and what's your goal
and what's real,
and what's real. That's the thing. Like, I think that it's so important to keep repeating, this is a highlight reel, and you know, the thing is, the reality of it is that if I posted all the yucky moments and bills and things that no one wants to, like, social media is an escape. You're not gonna watch me clean puke from the floor or talk about, you know, our hydro bill. So, you know, I still want to entertain you. I want to make sure that, you know, a photo makes you happy or smile or think, but I always make sure that, you know, there's something, if it's in the caption, or something that will like kind of bring reality a little bit into the picture. Yeah,
absolutely.
The next thing that I found with finance, when I started learning a little bit more, I was already, you know, I was making money. I started working early. And I was kind of like making, spending. I needed very little at that time. But as I got older, I got very fortunate. Like when I married my husband, we were very comfortable. He worked really hard. He has a great job. And when I got into the picture, I was like, I want to learn more because there's so much, you know, I want to understand what this whole money finance thing is about. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing a budget. And I want to know how much goes everywhere. I'm going to be so savvy, and my husband will be so impressed. And I started like this whole project. I researched the best budget apps, and I started tracking it, and it made me so depressed. It was so terrible.
I'm not surprised.
And I was like, something's wrong with me. And the thing is, I'm a very goal-oriented person. So I was like, this is my goal. I'm going to conquer this. And I just like kept failing over and over again, to a point where I was like, I don't care anymore, whatever, we all die anyway, so just like here. So when I read the chapter about budgeting, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. So can you tell me a little bit about the way you approach with your clients the whole like budget thing?
So what you've just said is, it hit the nail on the head. Most people turn to budgeting when they want to take their finances under control and like take the reins and charge forward. And most budgets are these ones that make you categorize your money into like 50 different sections. You've got coffee shops, you've got clothes, you've got takeout, you've got miscellaneous shopping, my favorite. And so you've got all these different things. And then what you're supposed to do is forecast or guess where you're going to spend money in the next like month or two. And then you make these tiny categories, and then you do your best shot to live within these small confines. That's so not realistic for real life. One weekend in your groceries, your family might be visiting, and you need to spend more than that, or you have to do something, you have to buy more groceries because your friends are in town. And then the next weekend, you just like chill in and watch movies and don't spend any money, right? So like, how can you know? And so what I've noticed is that people fail when they have that over categorization of their money, right? Just like you did. They get frustrated. They feel like, what's wrong with me? I'm bad with money. Everybody else seems to be able to get their money in order. I can't. And then they give up altogether, thinking that like they're bad with money and budgeting is not possible. The worst thing that we can do with our finances is believe our own self-talk, which is like, I'm not good with money. So if you hear yourself saying that, can it. Everybody has the ability to be good with money. It's your own self-feeling and self-doubt. So what I do with budgeting is I'm like, okay, budgets are broken. All
you wanted to say screw it.
Screw it. Screw budgeting. All you need to do is figure out a line in the sand to separate the money that you can and can't spend. That's it.
Which is so simple.
It's so simple that I think no one thinks about it because it's so simple.
Yes, the whole like line in the sand is...
That's it. I call it your hard limit. So you know there's a limit on what you can spend. When you hit it, you're done until the next pay period, right?
And those are the things like...
So there's 4 categories of money.
Yeah.
So instead of having 50, we can boil it down to 4. So the first one is your fixed expenses. And those are things that like your bills. You cannot get out of this money. So your student loan payments, your rent, your phone, anything that's kind of coming out of your account or off your credit card every single month that like is a non-negotiable and it's happening. And the interesting thing about that is that I would still put things like, you know, a gym membership in there because you've signed a contract. So even though you could quit the gym, it's still something that you have to come up with the same amount of money every single month. It's predictable and it's consistent. So that's the fixed expenses. That's all your bills. Then you have meaningful savings, which is like the stuff that everyone gets exciting about. That's, you know, paying down debt in a big way, investing, putting money into your nest egg, that kind of thing. Like meaningful savings are the ones that move the dial forward financially, that makes us go to sleep at night being like, I'm so financially responsible. Yay! And then the third is short-term savings, which is basically glorified spending money. So if I go on a vacation, I want to sock some money away so that when that big spike in my spending happens, I'm like, hey, I don't have to put that on debt. Cool.
Oh,
that's the key. I think it's actually the key to everything.
Emma's learning so much right now.
Mind blown right now.
I got you. And then the last but not least is spending money. Glorious spending money, which is the only money that's for us. If you think about all those 4 money, all of them have a job. Pay your bills, create your nest egg, prepare yourself for future disaster, and the rest that's it. Out of all of the things, that's yours. So why would we make more rules and slap ourselves on the wrist with our spending money when it's the only money that's left for us to enjoy our life? And that's the money that we don't want to budget. That's the money that we want full fluid flexibility over, because it's the only stuff that we can actually spend money in to enjoy our life.
Very simple. Okay, so we have the first category.
Fixed expenses.
Meaningful
savings. Short-term savings. That's the money that you cannot spend, right?
They all have a job.
That's right. Yeah, they all have a job.
I got really into that book. They all have a job, and then you have the
spending money.
The glorious
spending money, and that doesn't have a job except to make sure you're fed and having a good time. So in your spending money would be your groceries, your transportation if it's not a consistent path, going out for dinner, buying a pair of pants, whatever it is to like get you through your life. So we can isolate the spending money into its own account. On payday, you put money into a bank account that you can't spend, you put money into a bank account where there's money you can spend, and then you blow it to zero until the next paycheck, and that's it.
Again, I'm going to keep repeating simple because everything, I had such a complicated relationship with finance before. Yeah. That's the thing, it's like an automated thing, right? Once you get into the groove of just like, okay, this is the separation and this right away goes, you're saving yourself so much energy and anxiety and questions.
So much. And by separating it into 2 separate checking accounts, you take all the guesswork out of it too. So a lot of times people have one account where everything's coming out of. So if your rent is due tomorrow and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can or can't afford this, I'm just going to put it on my credit card because like I want to make sure that my rent's there. And then you end up spending on your credit card, and then it's this whole cycle.
It's just like a mess.
So if you have the money isolated, and like let's say that you could spend $350 or $400 a paycheck in your spending account, then instead of being like, oh, I get $1,200 a paycheck, you're like, I get $400 a paycheck because all that other money has a job. It's not yours.
And it's worry-free. It's worry-free money.
Guilt-free, worry-free, blow it to zero. I don't care. Nobody should. Right?
So much. Then we're going to move to happy spending. That was my favorite. It was my favorite. Did I say it about like the other 3 chapters that we talked about? Okay, but this one was like my favorite. Happy spendings was something that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned, I was like on this like finance kick, and I came to my husband and I was like, listen, I want to know where our money goes. And I want to make sure that we're just in control of it, and if there's things that we spend on, maybe we don't realize, like we eat out a lot and all these things, we need to cut them because they're not improving our lives in any way. So we sat down and we kind of did these categories, and we looked at our, our credit card bills, and it's like, okay, we're eating out a lot. We're gonna cut there.
Slash it.
And we're sitting there, we think it was like, we can do it. And it was like this whole like plan. And can I tell you that it did not last more than 3 days? Because like my husband would come home, he's like, but then what do we do? Like how do we entertain ourselves? Where do we see our friends? And again, something that like went out the window. And that's why this chapter, I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
So can you expand a little bit about happy spendings?
Yeah. What you've just pointed to is that most times when we look at our statements and our bank balances, the thing we spend the most money on, the category, whether it's groceries or eating out or coffee shops or clothes, those are the trigger ones I hear the most people saying like, oh, I spend so much money there. Then we immediately think that that's where we should cut. What I like to say is if those are the places you're spending the most money, it's probably a place that you're getting the most value from as a person. It's probably the most important things to you because you keep spending a lot of money on it. So maybe instead of cutting them, maybe we need to cut elsewhere and make room for those to breathe. And so that's the whole concept about happy spending, is that it's permission to spend your money on things that make you happy so that you can make room for them and enjoy it. So when we make an investment in the stock market or in real estate or something, we research the crap out of it. We like think about it. We want that return on investment piece, but we should have that same analysis and mindfulness when it comes to our spending money, because if you keep spending money on things that don't fill you up and don't like make you happy, then you're kind of like divesting from your own happiness, right? Because that's the only money that's for you. So every time we spend money, we have an emotional return on investment. That's what I call it, like an EROI. There are sometimes when you spend money and you're like, damn, I feel good about that. And then there's sometimes you spend money and you're like, I hate myself. Right? And so I'll give you an example. Like 2 clients come into my office. They both spend $5 a day on a very expensive coffee, right? One of them, I'm like, hey, rate this coffee out of 5 for how much value it brings to your life. Do you feel proud? Do you feel happy?
So
joy?
5 is like,
utmost
it makes
happiness.
me so happy.
So happy.
Okay.
And a 1 is like low. So first person's like, I get so much value from it. She's like, it's part of my morning commute. I love my barista. It's like part of my community. I feel like I'm part of my neighborhood. Like I love it. And I love the coffee. 5 out of 5. Happy spending, okay? The other person's in my office and he's like, every time I spend $5 on a coffee, all I think about all morning is how lazy I was in the morning because I have a great coffee machine at home. I resent this coffee and it's like, it makes me feel lazy and frustrated. So that's a 1, right? Like he's not getting that value that the other person is.
Yeah.
So only he needs to cut coffee from his budget. She should actually cut elsewhere and make sure she can continue to keep buying a $5 coffee because it makes her happy. And when we don't spend money on things that make us happy, we feel broke.
Yeah.
Because we can't have what we want.
Yeah.
And we work so hard and we're all hustling. And when you can't actually spend money on anything that's for you, you feel broke and unhappy and miserable with your finances. And that's why you give up, because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
So happy spending, you go through that spending money, you rate things on a scale of 1 to 5. You cut the 1s, you cut the 2s, 3 is neutral, and you try to keep as many 4s and 5s as you possibly can, because that's a way to go through and really be mindful about like, what am I spending my money on that doesn't fill me up, and what am I spending money on that does? And then give yourself permission to spend money on the things that are important to you, not your parent, not your neighbor, not anyone you hear in the media, because they don't know how you live your life.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how you live your life, and so why would I judge how you spend your money? But that's when we hear all these media, like frugal lifestyle blogs being like, cut the latte, brown bag your lunch, no more avocado toast, right? And then it makes people feel guilty when they buy those things.
That's the thing. It cultivates such a nice lifestyle for yourself. It's like you're creating this happy place for yourself.
Yeah, it's self-love.
It's self-love, and it all comes down to it all the time. I preach it all the time. You focus on yourself, you do what makes you happy, and you don't deprive yourself and make yourself feel like you're a slave to something that you can easily unplug from, right?
Live within your means without hating your life.
Exactly.
That's the promise. That's the promise,
it's
right?
Possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
For you guys, I know that, I mean, a lot of the things that we talk about here is kind of broad. There's some specific points, but in your book, what I love is that you really took like cases, like case studies, and you broke down the budgets. And those are people that have realistic lives, good jobs, normal jobs, students that like everything that it's very you know, relatable to everybody. So you can really actually see the numbers and just the way it works. And once you like see numbers, you're like, oh, right.
And I used, these are real people. I mean, obviously I changed their names and everything like that, but that's why they feel so real, because their finances are literally real from people, how they live and what they're making and stuff. So it's kind of like peeking behind the curtain of people's financial lives, right?
We are always talking about money, but we're like not really talking about money.
We're talking around money.
We're talking around money.
Yeah.
You shared a personal experience in the book about, you know, just how we approach money and how it's this like ooh, you know?
Yeah, it's super taboo.
Yeah, so do you want to share kind of your story?
Yeah, so a bunch of girlfriends and I were going out for a birthday party, and I was trying to save up for my wedding, and I was like starting my business. I just quit my job and started this whole thing, and we were treading water, and I was really trying to save, and I felt like there was always some pressure to spend money, right? Oh, it's this person's birthday. Oh, it's this person's wedding shower. Oh, it's this thing. Oh, I have to go here. And so I was feeling really broke, and like I could never actually spend money where I needed to and save money that I had to, because I wasn't saying no ever. I didn't want to hurt my friends' feelings, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of all came to a head on this birthday party night. I had resolved myself. I was like, this is the month where I'm finally going to like put myself first and say no to things. And she was like, want to go out for dinner for my birthday next Wednesday to this restaurant? And I knew that this restaurant was so expensive. It was like $100. It was going to be $100 night for sure by the time I added in like a taxi and wine and stuff. And I was like, I don't really have the money for this. Like I do, as in I can spend this money. It's not going to make me broke in retirement, but I don't want to spend it because I should be putting it here.
Yeah.
But I said yes, even though I was really like kind of resentful in the moment. I was like, yes, because I don't want you to think I'm cheap, and I don't want to hurt your feelings and all those stuff. I want to be a good friend. And then as we got there, another one of my friends and I were meeting up on the subway, and I was like, I finally was just honest with her. I'm like, I don't really want to be spending the money to go here tonight. It's very expensive. And she was like, whoa, are you being mean? Like, what's happening? I'm like, I just feel broke. And she was like, me too. I shouldn't be spending this either, because she was trying to save her own stuff. So then there was like us. Then we met up with another friend as we were walking in, and I was like, well, let's try this.
You were on a roll.
I was on a roll. I'm like, I really wish we were going somewhere cheaper. I can't really afford this. And again, same reaction. Like, what are you getting at?
Yeah.
And like, are you being mean? Because like, are you like, you don't want to be here? And I was like, I love my friend. I want to be here, but I can't really afford it. And she was like, me neither. And so now there's 3 of us that were all like, we're going for dinner, and not one of us wants to be spending money.
Yeah.
So then I did something which was really, really, not the average person would do this, but because I'm a financial planner and a little bit of a money geek, I was like, I will do this. So I just sat there at dinner once we were all seated spending.
I want to mention though, these are also your close friends.
These are my close friends. This
like,
is not like a random dinner party.
Don't do it. Yeah, don't.
And you don't even have to do this. You can do a version of this. Do not try this at home.
That's why she's the expert.
Yeah,
she did the research.
This is an extreme move. But at dinner, here's the part which I think was key. So everyone was quiet, and then I made myself really vulnerable and honest. And I just said, listen, I can afford to be here, as in I have the money, but Matt and I are trying to save for our wedding. I'm not really making the money that I used to when I used to work on Bay Street. I'm really freaking out, and I feel like there's always something to spend money on, and this is just another one of those things that I can't say no to. And is anyone else feeling frustrated like this? And when I framed it like that, like the frustration, here's what I wish I could do, but I can't, everyone was like, yeah, I do feel like that too. Absolutely everyone. And the birthday girl was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just wondering if we're all in this together. Turns out, after we went through that night, we all started talking about money. It was so wonderful. It was like 10 young women talking about money. We talked about what we made, which we had never done. And these were my like best friends.
Yeah.
We had never actually talked openly about how much money we make. And so what happened was too, like my friend whose birthday it was assumed that all of us were making way more money than we were. So she thought that she was hard done by and like not able to keep up, and all of us were pretty in the middle together. And especially with me, because I work in finance, she just assumed that my income was like baller level. And so for me to say something like I can't afford to do this felt like an insult, right? But it wasn't. And so what that night did was allowed us all to create this thing I call money love, right? Was allowed us to create a community of support for each other, where we have the freedom and the permission to say, I can't afford to do that. What else is possible? Without insulting the other person. So now, when it's birthdays or wedding showers or now baby showers or anything like that, we are able to collaborate as a team and say, hey, because we know what each other makes, we know who's doing well and who's not, and it's allowed us to say like, hey, I'm going to stick this one out. It's not really in the budget right now. I can't do it. And that other person who's invited is not upset or hurt by that, because that's the key. With our friends, we don't want to hurt them. And that's what happens when you just say no or bail or like are weird about it because you just don't want to say, I can't afford this. Being honest about money can help you save money and grow wealth if you do it with a community of people who support you.
I really love also this approach in general, because first of all, it's so nice to feel that you can just be real and authentic and just put it out there. I'm sure it affected your friends so nicely when they're just like,
Absolutely.
It's such a relief,
Such
right?
a
And you're
relief.
being considerate. I'm sure you guys even got like closer. Like it's a
Yes.
more intimate relationship.
Yes.
When you get to such personal kind of details about your life.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household where there was always money talk. My stepfather was always like, we don't have enough, we can't afford this, we can't do that. Then I had the polar opposites, like my mother, where she's like, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And she found a way. There was
Yeah.
always a way, but there was always a struggle. Money
Yeah.
was always a struggle.
Yeah.
So when I started making money, first of all, it was like a subject that I just didn't even want to get into. I didn't want to learn anything about it. I was just like,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm making money,
It's
you know,
fine.
I can
Yeah.
afford my rent and whatever, I'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us grow up like this, where we're having this like thing of a relationship with money. We always have some complex with
Yeah.
it. I never really looked at it as being like, being open and real about money can actually make you free in a way,
Make
right?
you free and legitimately help you save more money.
Yeah.
Because it'll help you say no when you have to, and it gives you the permission to do that, so that you are able to live within your means. And when we're all trying to live on a little bit of spending money, you got to say no to something at
Yeah.
some point, right? You can't say yes to everything. That's just math.
And it's like money is like, it doesn't define you. It's
No,
a thing. It's just
it's a
like
tool.
another thing.
It's
It's
a
a tool. And I think that once you switch, just, you know, from listening to you and reading this book, and me coming from a background where, for me, you know, growing up, I just thought money defines you. Like you're
Yeah.
either rich or you're poor.
Yeah.
And just,
Oh, I hate those words.
yeah. And learning now that it's a tool, and you can talk about it as a tool.
Yep.
It's an outside thing, and you have to step out of it.
Yep.
Take out your ego out of it. Take all
Yes.
these, you know, things that we think is part of money.
Yeah.
And just really, you know, kind of address it in a way we address every other tools that we have in our lives.
Yeah, it's a tool, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And so you need to be okay in both of those scenarios, right? And
Yeah.
and so that's a huge piece of learning too. It's not always just like rich or poor. That's a dangerous way to think. I'm glad you brought that up. I hear those words a lot.
I really hope that my kids, like, we talk a lot with Gary about money because we're business oriented. We like to talk about it,
Yeah.
and we treat it as, okay, how can we, you know, and I want my boys to hear it. I'm trying to, you know, bring this experience of like, this is something that you can control and
Use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly, and just learn about. And it's not just like you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's smart.
It's a very interesting subject. Because I did a story on my Instagram, I got a lot of questions from
Sure.
the audience.
Yeah,
so
which is
I
great.
wanted to ask a lot of things we really kind of touched upon, and especially once, you know, you guys will pick up the book, like all the small little details that you asked, how to afford life, like all of this is here in a very detailed manner, so you guys will really like learn a lot. There is one question that kept repeating,
Yeah.
and I really wanted to talk to you about it.
Yes.
And it was investments.
Yes.
It's like a thing. It's so chic now.
I know.
All
It's
these
so
young
cool
women.
to invest. Yeah, I
I
love
got
it.
like 19-year-olds that message me and they're like, I'm almost finishing, you know, or I'm getting into college.
Yes.
And I really want to invest. And girls that just finished university I have so many student loans, but I feel like I need to invest.
Yes.
And I'm just, you know, I'm thinking about it, and I get it. I understand where it's coming from, because we're now in an era where, you know, we were talking about it, like, oh, this like 23-year-old put $100 on Bitcoin and now he's a billionaire.
That's it.
And, you know,
Yeah.
like someone bought some stock and,
Yeah.
and marijuana, like everyone
Yeah.
is a marijuana investor.
And it was
now.
instant and fast.
Instant and fast. And that's like the time we're in now, where it's like this instant gratification.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do want to talk about it, like investments. What do you think about it?
Yeah. Okay. So first thing, regular investing, 99% of the time, is a way to build wealth. But over the long run, these, you know, put in $100 and now is a millionaire kind of thing. These are stories of short-term wins that are not the norm.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about I want to invest, typically you're talking about that short-term win, or you think that that's what investing's all about. That's not what investing is all about. Not actually. Those are the exceptions to the rule
Yes.
of thumb, right? And so with investing, I'm obviously pro-investing, but let's walk before we run and make sure that we're actually understanding what we mean when we say we're investing. Because I think that a lot of people want to invest because they think it's a way to build wealth, which it is. But what does that mean, and why would you do it, right? So first of all,
I think, sorry to cut you off, I think
Yeah.
it's like passive income. That's what people
Think.
think about when
Yeah.
they say investments.
So in the last, 10 years, stock markets have done relatively well. So we haven't heard a lot of like, oh my God, market's freaking out. But I remember 2009 and 2008, and it was like, oh my God, I'm never investing again. So it just depends on what your learned experience is, right? So I think investing is wonderful, but just like any investment, there's risk. So it could go up, it could also go down. There is no guarantee, there is no crystal ball. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. I always say this, if everybody on Wall Street or everyone on Bay Street, which is our Wall Street, still goes to work every day, then they're not psychic and they don't know exactly what's going to happen. Because if they did, they just do it and then bounce, right?
Yeah,
like that's what they would do. So everyone is guessing. So that's not to say that investing is bad. I love it, but let's make sure you're ready to invest. And I think that's the thing I want to talk about. So number one, if you have debt, you should be focusing on all of those savings. Like, let's make sure that we pay that debt down. Student loans, I understand they can be massive, like, $80,000 loans and stuff like that. Well, you're young and you don't have a lot of overhead expenses yet necessarily. Maybe there's not like kids and a mortgage and all this stuff. This is your time to really take that debt by the horns and hammer anything that you can down to that. Because that debt's going to be with you for a long time, especially if it's that big. So I would say we want to make debt our priority first. The second thing, so let's say that we were debt-free, the second thing you want to start building is that short-term savings, that emergency account. And this is why. So I hear a lot of people saying that they want to throw money into their investment accounts before they have an emergency account. Well, then what happens is there's an emergency and then they don't have any money and they go into debt because a lot of times the accounts that you use for investments, you're not necessarily able to liquidate and get the money out. So again, until you're in a situation where you've got a little bit of an emergency account, so if you lose your job or if you're freelance, you have a slow time, or if there's a bad breakup and you need to move all of a sudden, like these are real life things that happen to people that if you don't have a little bit of, I call it mad money, or like a little bit of an emergency account, you're going to have to go into debt in order to bail yourself out of that situation. And one of the things I have learned over watching so many people is that when you're down and out, if you have to bail yourself out with debt, it's like kicking you while you're down. It adds to the anxiety of it. So no. Let's not do that. So debt first, emergency savings next, then investing. Bring it on. I love investing. It's a wonderful way to build wealth, but let's make sure that we're doing it in the right priority first and for the right reasons.
What are the right reasons?
So you want to build wealth once you've covered off your short-term basis. If you're chasing returns, which is what that's what the fake promise is, right? Oh, I'm being charged 5% on my student loan, but I could probably make 10% if I invest it.
Yes.
That 10% is not guaranteed, and that 5% sure
is.
So let's be careful.
And
if you invested in a specific account, like I know there's people from all over the world watching this, so I don't want to necessarily say specific accounts, but there are certain accounts across the world where if you put money into it for retirement and you invest it, you can't necessarily easily get that out without paying some sort of tax penalty or something like that. And so if the markets go down, let's say that there's a negative 3% rate of return, super normal, super possible, and you're being charged 5% over here, well now you're losing money, aren't you? So that chasing returns is not the right reason to invest for a short period of time. What you want to do is you want to make sure the money that you're investing is invested for a long-term investment. That's like taking you to retirement over 10, 15, 20 years. Then you can handle those ups and downs in the market, which are going to happen and are super normal and okay. But if you're looking at it as a way to get rich quick in the next 2 to 3 years to like pay off debt or make your money work for you, the best way to make your money work for you is to pay down your debt. 100%.
Makes sense. At what point would you say a woman can, let's say, okay, now I'm ready to invest? So they paid their debts. They have their cushion emergency.
That's it. Then you're ready.
And that's it.
Then you're ready. Then go forward, because now you're in a position where you're wealth building. You've covered your basis, and now you're investing for the right reason. You're not just trying to get rich quick. You're trying to build your nest egg. So at that point, you want to sit down. You want to learn about investing too. So who are you getting advice from? You want somebody who is fee only, which is a person who's not selling you investments, because they are selling you investments. So they obviously are biased. So you want someone that has your best interest at heart, and they can educate you first and then advise you. Both things, because a lot of times when people go into financial meetings, there's a lot of jargon used, right, about stock markets and stocks and returns and dividends and all this stuff. And somebody who might not know what all that stuff is, doesn't want to feel stupid.
Yeah.
So they may not ask the right question, and they may not know how they're paying for this. They don't know what they're being charged. They don't know if the products are appropriate for them. They don't even know that it is a product, right?
Yeah.
So understand how the investment business works and what you're paying. So if you're going to sit down and talk about investing, how is that person getting paid? Ask them. So are they getting paid from your investments, or are you paying them like a fee for their service? So that's the first thing. And then second of all, make sure that you understand how a stock works, how a bond works, and how those work together in a product, which would be something like a mutual fund or an index fund or an ETF. So understanding all that jargon so that when you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm in it, I'm going to invest, you feel empowered, you feel like you know what's going on, and you're not afraid to call your advisor or your planner and ask questions. Because if you're intimidated by your person, they make you not want to call and they make you not want to ask questions, they are the wrong person for you.
100%.
Yeah.
Basically, you got a lot of homework to do. As a financial advisor, do you have a lot of young women come to you?
Yeah, so I would say that so many, especially on the younger side, are the women, and I think it's because...
What's the younger side?
So we usually 22 to 26 is our demographic of women that are coming in, but a lot of times they're looking to pay back student debt, or they want to get married, or they're wanting to start their nest egg and invest. And so part of what we're doing is like, okay, let's set you on a good trajectory. And so I've been doing this for a long time, and the clients, but mostly when they're younger, it's women that come in that I've seen and I've been working with. Responsible, and I think you're just willing to say, hey, I don't know what's going on here. Can you help?
I know, yes.
Right? And I love it. So the women that have come in, because I've been doing this for like a long time, 10 years now, who I got to work with when I was 24, right? Or actually, or 23, and I was working with them then, and they were my peers, are so much better off than the women and the families that are 35, 40 that are coming to me now for the first time.
Of course.
And wished that they had come from their early 20s, right? And that is just because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of jargon. And so how do you weed through it all and know what's for you? And so I think that sitting down with a trusted resource, whoever that might be, and getting on a plan from the time you're young and being strategic about your money. So I wish that was the question. Instead of I want to invest, I wish it was I want to be strategic with my money.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the end result is the same. I want to get the biggest bang for my buck and be smart. But I think we think investing is that when it could be, but it could also be paying down debt, building an emergency account, or all those other things.
So you see, it's funny because until recently, before marriage, when I was working, I was modeling, I was making money, I was making a pretty good income. And, I thought that I'm not going to go to a financial planner. I don't know, I'm 22. Yes, I make good money, but I'm not a grown-up. What am I going to talk about? So I love the fact that we're actually, you're mentioning how you have so many young women that are now so ahead of the game and feel so much more secure. And, it helped them in making better choices in their lives and just, with more confidence.
Even if they didn't have a lot of money to work with.
You don't need, necessarily a career or just a big plan. You can just come and be like, okay, can you teach me?
Yes.
Can you give me tips of just how to be smart? I think it's such an important investment.
In yourself.
Emma, you're going to see Shannon. And I just think that I feel now that every time I'm going to see a young woman, I'll be like, have you?
Yes.
Do you go to the gym? Do you drink water? Do you have a financial advisor?
Yeah. Those are the three things you need.
3 things that you need.
Yeah.
I want to do a fire round where I'm just going to ask you random questions. So 3 money lessons you wish you knew when you were younger.
Be honest and open about money with your friends and your family. I think that the effect of that in my life has been so wonderful. I wish I did it when I was younger. 2, invest in yourself. So educate yourself on all things money so that you can make informed decisions and trust your gut. That's huge. And 3, enjoy it. It's a tool that we use to afford and enjoy our life, both things at the same time.
Yeah. Most expensive purchase that was your happy purchase?
My wedding. It was it was so expensive because we were young.
Yeah.
And we saved up for it. It was grueling. It wasn't over the top. So I felt really good about all the purchases. I didn't resent any of them because we were really careful where we were able to be careful. And at the end of the day, when everything was said and done, we didn't have any debt left over because I didn't let it get out of control. I felt really strongly about the things we did spend money on, and then totally okay with the things that we were like, can't do it, no. And at the end of the day, once it was all said and done, I was like, I feel okay with it. And the reason is, the whole time I was checking in with myself, like, are you just doing this because you think you should have this? Or is this something that is important to you, and can you afford it? Right? Like, so we never spent anything that we couldn't afford. That's why it felt so good when it was over.
Most unnecessary purchase that you keep on purchasing.
Oh, I'm bad with takeout. So takeout's unnecessary in the sense that, like, we can all cook. I have a complex happy spending relationship with takeout.
Is it unnecessary?
So to a point, I'm a busy lady. I got lots going on. So there's a point where this is like 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, and then all of a sudden it's like a 1 out of 5 because I'm like, it's too much. It's not servicing me anymore. So for me, that's the one that keeps happening because I need to get better routines going and like better planning. But I'm a new mom,
I
so
totally feel I'm not a new mom anymore, and I still like struggle.
It's just like I'm always like I'll do that in 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes turns into an hour, and then it's like, oh my god, I'm starving and there's nothing.
Uber Eats.
So there's that, right? There it is. There it is.
What's your pet peeve with money, and like that you see a lot with people, and it's like, oh, like, why do you do this?
Not doing your taxes. It blows my mind. So
you're like,
the tax man is not going to go away. Like, they're coming. It hasn't. And I think especially with younger people, there's a lot of like, well, if I don't owe, what's the point? Because it's annoying. Tax season's super annoying. So annoying. Everyone hates it. But if you are a student or younger and you're not making that much money, you might actually be leaving money on the table, because if you do your taxes, you might actually get some sort of refund or anything. So why would you leave money on the table, especially since at some point you got to do this anyways? So instead of looking at your taxes like an inevitable chore that you absolutely despise, why not look at it like, hey, maybe I might get some money back. Here's a way I can put some money in my pocket.
That's a good motivation.
And put some in my emergency savings.
Okay, and last question is, what is your life motto in general? Not only like money related, but in general. Like, what is the kind of a rule you live by?
Like, not to sound trite, but probably like be real. I'm very real with everybody, almost to a fault. I'm very honest. Like, people are like, hey, do you like our new place? I'm like, what'd you pay? I think that just with my friends, with my family, with myself, I just try to like keep it real so that I don't spiral into those places where you feel so inadequate, or like that you're setting yourself up. A really big thing, because I'm in the media a lot, I'm very honest about like that with people, because on one hand, it can seem like, oh, she's got all this going on. That's so fancy. And it's like, no, it's a lot of me schlepping around with like bags. You know what I mean? And so like, I don't have to post that on social media, but I'm very much open and honest about it. Yeah. So I think that I really try to be real in all aspects of my life, so that everyone just feels like we're all on the same playing field. We're all just people. And it's
also like, you're not, when I feel like when you're playing a role, it gets so hard to keep up with it sometimes. It'd be exhausting. Right? It's like, it's so exhausting. Yeah. So I agree. I love that. That's a good motto.
Yeah, that's
it. Okay, so this was it for our Money 101 Finance. I don't know still the caption for it. We're going to do some research and figure it out. But I wanted to say a huge thank you to Shannon for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It was so much fun.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
I did not think that talking about money today will be fun, but it was. As I mentioned, you guys, this is Worry-Free Money. Shannon wrote this, and it's like she's being real here. I think that honestly, this is an investment in yourself. I think that, as I mentioned and in my previous videos, and just now, if I could give an advice to my younger self, is to really just get a grip and learn more about what money means and how I can, take control of it to just feel more empowered and in charge of my life. So if there's one thing that I can give you as an advice, is learn more, and I truly recommend this book.
Thank you.
I'm going to put a link in the description box. You guys can see the book there, and I'm going to put Shannon's Instagram and Twitter handle if you have any questions or you want to spread some love and just tell her how beautiful and smart and kind she is. You can do that too. I support that. And that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me.
Bye.